Hey, good morning. Maria back with another video. It is 10:40. My goodness, January 1st, 2020. Oh my God. Okay, obviously I'm not really paying attention to the whole New Year's thing. Because I would have come off with the date first thing, and it took me a while to think about it. So this thing didn't. I guess New Year's doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't pay attention to it, but that does mean that I'm going to have to get another calendar eventually because, I was just kind of in a daze. In the last few days, I've just been thinking, my goodness, these people, I was thinking about, the whole thing that happened to me and all this other stuff. Of course, going on and on and on about it like I always do because there's nothing else really for me to think about, right? Anyway. So this morning, I was sick and tired of being in the house. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I am so sick and tired of this crap. So I decided to go for a walk, and there was hardly anyone out in the street. And now it makes sense to me. Now it makes sense because it's a holiday, and it's Wednesday, I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's Wednesday. And so, okay, see, it doesn't register in my brain until just now. Okay, so I went out for a walk today, and no wonder there was no one out in the street, down when I was watching it. Like, my God, it's so barren. I did see a few people. I walked up to the park today, and I saw a guy who was sitting at the bench, and then there was a girl across. But, usually as I'm walking down the street, I usually have, as I'm crossing the street, there's usually, a bunch of cars going down H Street, and there was hardly any. And that was in the morning. I think I left around 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30, somewhere around there. And it was no one. And I must have been so deep in thought. I just thinking about all this stuff and all the things I have to do. And I'm going to tell you, it is kind of heavy on me. I am trying to get my stuff together. And it's hard. It's really hard because, when you're looking for work, it's hard to reach people. It's hard to contact them, especially when you're in a situation where you feel like you're pressed for time, and it's a lot on a person. And so that was swimming through my head, and I didn't go for a long walk because usually I go around these different streets. I just wanted to get closer to the park. I just wanted to be out in the park. I'm trying to take it easy. I'm not trying to go into walking a whole lot because when a person's dealing with a lot of stress, and they're getting older, there's a lot of shit that can go wrong. I had an issue when I was walking on Ming because of the stress issue. So I'm just trying to take it easy, okay? I'm just kind of taking baby steps here because there's a lot that goes on in the mind can affect the physical body. And then you're dealing with stress here, so it's not good. So you just try to take it easy. So, I was thinking, about how I was always laughing when I was younger. I was always laughing over shit that was just really stupid or whatever. And, sometimes, I'll find myself giggling over, things that I think are funny. And that's another thing. I think people kind of associate somebody who has a good sense of humor with being childish, or somebody who's just, but I don't think so. I think it's good to have a good sense of humor. And I miss laughing as much as I used to. I mean, good grief. I used to laugh so much I'd cry, And I do enjoy those days where I actually get a chance to, laugh. But I do. I mean, I don't want, to be serious all the time, but I think I've been more serious in communicating. I've always been seriously. In my own little room when I was all to myself, or when I was out walking as a young girl, or all those times where I had time to be by myself, I was always thinking serious thoughts. But I tend to be giddy. When I was around people, I was always enjoying myself. But there's a lot that's happened, and I've been thinking a lot about what's some of the things that have happened in the past. And it makes sense. I understand that I've been stalked for a very long time. And now I understand, what happened, with my ex-family and things. And it's I woke up this morning and I kept thinking, okay, it's got to get better soon. I mean, as far as me getting over it, because I'm thinking about how much this has painted my life. Like, being in situations and trying to find what people call happiness or contentment, because I didn't understand where all of the depression and the frustration was coming from, because, like I said, I didn't realize I was being stopped. I didn't realize that I was dealing with trafficking or people invading my space or whatever. I didn't realize that for the longest time. And I kept thinking, what is going on? I remember back in 2009, I think it was, when little after I left organized sports, I kept thinking, what is going on? And I kept thinking about the other jobs that I'd work, and people get explosive for no reason, and then I kept thinking about, all the, how I just wanted to start over, and I could be happy. I would try to be happy, and then I went to the farmer's place, and this is when all the shit happened, and then it led me to this situation, right? So now I understand that it's a network of people, primarily my ex-family, who has been after me for a long time. And I'm hoping that one day it will bring a relief to me. Like, it will, because it'll settle in my mind, like, okay, now you know who is behind it. You know that it's okay. You're going to be okay because now you know. But I'm still dealing with the issue of the betrayal thing, and how that kind of shakes me a little bit, because it's like, my gosh, who do you trust? Once you deal with something like that, I mean, I always have been leery of people, but it's like, my God, my goodness, it's a lot of me. But anyway, so, not much today. I'm just doing, doing the look for work shit today, and trying to apply myself with that. And there's times where I kind of have to take breaks because it gets overwhelming for me. Because, you have to understand everything that's been related to work over the last few years, actually very long time. Let's just go back to just a decade, okay? We'll just take the last decade, okay? Which is a long time. I just realized that this last October would have been the 10th year that I was hired. It was 10 years ago that I was hired at the farmer's place. And I realized how long this has been going on, and how long these misunderstandings have been taking place. How many times I've actually come in contact with my ex-family, particularly my ex-brother-in-law, Jim Culligan. And these people saw me, not a bunch of times, but they see me once in a while. And these people were orchestrating this stuff, and I was seeing them, and never did I understand that they were behind it. Like, it was just, I feel like I really do feel like I've been betrayed. And it's very, it was very painful at first. And then you deal with the anger. And then you deal with the sadness, understanding that people will do this to people. They'll do it, But anyway, this is the new year, and I'm really not prepared for the new year. I don't have a calendar. Usually, like, the week before. See, this is what I'm trying to understand. I mean, like, convey the message I'm trying to convey. That this has really thrown me off kilter. You know what I mean? Usually, I buy a calendar either for Christmas, while Christmas is going on, or like a few days after Christmas, because I want to make sure I'm prepared for the new year. I didn't have a calendar this year. This is the first time, I'm going to have to take the calendar off my wall and deal with a blank wall, and then I'm going to run out and get a calendar. You know what I mean? This is very heavy on my mind, okay? Especially since it happened like the day after Christmas, and these people are just like, it really makes you wonder, like, geez, what the hell? Yeah, I mean, I don't have any of those. I'm not one of those people who makes, New Year's resolutions. I know some people do. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go and, like, I don't know, some people say they're gonna, eliminate people from their life and, take better care of themselves or whatever, just general things that people say, and, they use this date to make those changes in their life, but to me, like, when the new year comes now as an adult, it's just like the same stuff. It's like a continuous day. The date changes on the calendar, and that's pretty much it. I don't really make a big deal out of it. Of course, maybe if I had a social life, if I went to a party, a New Year's Eve party, which I only think I went to one in my entire life. Seriously. I only remember one, and I was getting tired the entire time. See, I'm one of those people. I like to go to bed early. But anyway, no, I mean, I just, New Year's, who cares about it? So I just wanted to take some time out because it was like, I felt like I was too much on the computer. Like I was on the computer too much, And then, and I've been that way for a few days. And then, today I was like, I'm just sick of the house, sick of being in it. And I might go out for another walk later on this afternoon. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll head in the other direction. I got to find something to keep my brain stimulated because it gets tiring. It's tiresome. It's boring sitting in the same house. I am not interested in television or watching it or sitting down or anything, watching a TV show. I really do feel as though I have this extreme burnout. Like I feel so burnt out. Like nothing interests me anymore. And that's weird because like I used to always have interest in like different things. I just feel like I've read enough, and I know that there's other things to learn. I know that, okay? I know that in life there's always something new to learn. But I guess because of all this, it just really took out a lot of the life in me, like a lot of my enthusiasm, and my interest. And generally, I've never been the kind of person that like really enjoys watching TV anyway. But I mean, I just feel like this intense amount of boredom and really no like, I don't have any motivation to care, that's really bad. But I think when you've dealt with this what I consider to be an oppressive issue over and over again, like every time you try to improve your life, there's somebody who thinks that they have the right to squash it and continually bullying you, you realize that, you just start being really unhappy. Because I'm not, even though I'm, a well-adjusted person, meaning like, I am an autonomous person, okay? Like I don't have a problem eating at a restaurant by myself. I really don't, okay? But still, you still need to be around people. I prefer living by myself, okay? I prefer making decisions by myself, okay? But you have to have interactions. You have to have people come by. You have to have, it's normal. It's called balance. I think most people enjoy being by themselves. I think most of the time they do. You know what I mean? Because that way, instead of, if you do things with your friends, then you've got to do things sometimes where like you want to go to a restaurant with your friend and they want to go eat Greek food and you want Mexican. You got to make some sort of adjustments to be around these people for that particular occasion. When you're by yourself, you can do things that you want. You know what I mean? You're more comfortable, right? But you do need to get interaction. That's normal, okay? So this routine that was set up for me wasn't right for me, So I realized that, I'm just trying to find interest in life again. I want to be interested in life again, And that's not a New Year's resolution. That was something I wanted for a very long time since I realized what was going on with this. Some people really, like I said before, aren't meant to cross paths. They're destructive to each other, to one another. You know what I mean? And I realized that sometimes we're born in the wrong family. Sometimes we're born in the wrong family. Some people have children and they recognize that their child is different, and then they study that child in a way where, like, for example, let's just say, for example, I was a kid and I was 4 years old and I got a piano, and the minute they sat me down at that piano, I was like little Miss Beethoven, right? To the best of my ability that I could be at 4 years old. Then it's like, well, the other kids might be into sports, right? Instead of saying, well, the other kids are into sports and this kid, she's a misfit because she's into the piano, they would, make sure that kid gets lessons, and they recognize, well, they have a special talent. This is what they're supposed to do, and encourage that kid. not all parents are like that, especially when you deal with somebody who's resentful for bringing another kid into the world, and now they have to be responsible for that, and they're resentful, and they don't want to deal with it, and that's just how there's a lot of people like that. And I understand that. I'm realistic about that sort of stuff. Okay, not all this whole idea of motherhood shouldn't be as glorified as it is. Okay, there needs to be a realistic view of it. I mean, I think that motherhood is great. I mean, it's wonderful. I remember when I had my kid, I was so happy. And I remember like looking at him, and when he'd be all balled up in the little blanket, and I remember like he would make these little smiling faces. And I remember thinking how cute it was that he would do that when he was sleeping. And then somebody told me that it was just gas. And I thought, okay. But anyway, I adored my son, okay? And I really think I would have had a better time raising him if I didn't have to deal with the frustration that my ex-family caused me in my work. But motherhood is great. I do remember really great times with my son when he was really little and stuff. But some women who may have had, like, for example, I wasn't one of those women who got married and then had like one and then another child and another child. Some women are just really weighed down by that. You know what I mean? Especially women, I would say, of my mother's generation, women who didn't have an outlet. They didn't have an outlet. Some women just had, they had their kids and they didn't work. My mother didn't drive. She didn't do a lot of things that a lot of women had the opportunity to do. She was like a generation, well, I would say about a decade or so older than some of my younger friends, my friends who were my age, who had parents, and they were a different age, or there was like a gap there, because my mom was like born in the 30s, and then those kids' parents were born like in the 40s, and there's a difference there. Okay, there is a difference. As far as, what the roles were expected to be of women, because if you were born in the 40s, then you're probably one of those 60s chicks, and then you probably had a little bit more of a idea of certain freedoms and stuff like that, right? So anyway, so then, you can get resentful towards children, and you can, instead of being having a motherly role, you can be one of the big kids. You can kind of be more of a friend to your kids, right? And then instead of being like the one who says, okay, we're in the same family, we all have to get along, and make sure that everybody gets along. You know what I mean? Kind of prevent the fights or whatever. Some parents actually get in with the fighting and encourages it. Okay? Or the one who orchestrates it. Some people are like that because they don't know what their roles are. And this is very common among people who are kind of ignorant like that. Some people are ignorant. Instead of some parents, instead of correcting their children, correctly, like, verbally, or because not everything, because I was raised with spanking. I don't know if like some of you guys had spankings when you were a kid. Some people think that's proper discipline. Some people think it's too harsh. I will say though, CPS would have been at my parents' house because back then, I think a lot of people spanked their kids. I think they did. I think it was more common back then, depending on how old your parent was or whatever. But we were spanked, depending on what it was. So I don't think the spankings were warranted a lot of times, but that we got spanked a lot, and I think sometimes people discipline their children out of frustration more than trying to teach them a lesson. I think that's one of the reasons why some people think that spanking's illogical, because instead of teaching them a lesson, it just looks like you're looking for an outlet or an excuse to physically harm somebody. It kind of comes off that way. And I felt that way when I was a kid. Like your kid does something wrong, and so you hit them. It didn't make sense to me. It seems like, you should provide guidance. Like, for example, your kid does something wrong, then show them the correct way of doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember sometimes my punishments were, I think, ridiculous. Like, you should make the punishment fit the crime, okay? So, like, instead of, like, grabbing, like, a stool or chair or something to grab a can out of the cabinet, you might it was more like me and my nature to climb on top of the cabinet and grab it. Right? Some parents would look at that and they're like, okay, come back down here. You know, you come down here. This is what we use. We use a stepping stool. Okay. But instead of doing that, you know, my mother is the kind of person that would just greet you and just grab you and hit you. You know what I mean? Because they act on impulse and they don't think about, you know, this person needs to be guided. And that's just how you raise children. You guide them. You don't smack them. You don't reprimand them for things that are frivolous and stupid. Especially if something that they did something that was, they weren't familiar with. Like, you know, instead of a kid, when you're a kid, you're curious, you climb on top of the countertop to grab something. Maybe you have no concept what this stepping stool was, or you, whatever, you know, whatever the case. That's just an example. But I just think sometimes, you know, people, not everybody is meant to be a parent. You know what I mean? And I'm realistic about that, you know? So, anyway. I'm not into the New Year thing. It's any other day. I'm going to be eating lunch soon and then picking up my little project here and working my way through the day. And, you know, I'm just hoping that, you know, people pay more attention to their behavior. You know what I mean? And it trickles down. It really does. This is a great example of how, you know, dysfunction trickles down. And how, you know, I grew up in this majorly dysfunctional family. And you know what? Hey, I realize I'm not the only one who grew up in a dysfunctional family. People are broken. There's a lot of broken people in the world. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to see that a lot of people are broken. Like, society is broken. When I think about it, you know, people tend to behave inappropriately. They do things that are wrong. We're only human. You know, we're all human. Okay? But I think some people can get pressured by outside sources to be in roles that they're not supposed to be in. Like I mentioned, the Andrea Yates thing and the whatever. You know, maybe, you know, for example, my ex-mother would have been better off if she may have had just one child. You know what I mean? But 3 children was too much. Or maybe she would have been better if she was just married and didn't have children. You know what I mean? Sometimes people put so much pressure on other people to live out certain roles that is really impossible to them. But you feel they want you to appease them. They want you to make them happy. They want to force you to make or tend to their personal ideas of what they think you should be to be happy, but you're not doing it for yourself. And eventually, you know, if you bring a kid into this world and you really don't want it, or you're iffy about it, and you don't understand what it really entails, then you're going to be another person who produces another lost and broken person. So you're just adding to it and making another statistic. That's all you're doing. Just another statistic. And I'm going to tell you what, there's a shitload of people like that. Like us, okay? And what I mean by that are people who've been scapegoated, disrespected by their families, you know, belittled, treated in a way that's completely in a dehumanized manner, bullied, whatever. There's so much of that. So much of that. So I'm not saying, you know, oh, you know, but, you know, this is the way it is. My story is just out there because, you know, apparently I get the feeling that my family's notorious for their bullying up on me. I really do. I think they're known for it, you know, and people just kind of think it's just kind of family fun at the beginning. But now people realize that this kind of stuff really should be taken seriously. It really should be. Bullying should never have gone on. Like, you know, especially if I'm an adult and I'm not even living in their vicinity and they're coming in this area and they're raising hell. It's like, come on, you know. It's a serious issue, you know, and it can, you know, like it infected the neighborhood when I was growing up. It infected the school system when I was growing up. It got into my work when I was younger, and it got into my work as an adult and into the community that I live in. And I'm not even in the same community, close by, but not in the same community. So, and then also it got on Facebook. So guess what? It traveled the world. You see, so when I look at that, to me, that's like demonic. Okay, why it's demonic? Because somebody, some dysfunction, like I said before, can be a spiritual, how could I say it? Spiritually dangerous, you know, like it can be. And I do think that that's what kind of can evolve into what they call demon possession or whatever. That's a video for another day. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up because I'm getting a little tired. So I'll be back with another video some other time later. Take care.